lead the way. The younger women are less interested in migrating and buying a smartphone. They are interested in learning, what on the ground. Even some male weavers are staying there. So that is, that's to us that change maker. Everyone can be a change maker through the work that you do, how you do it. You can bring about that change.
Anybody else?
I think the whole
It's fine.
the Vivashala initiative that we have is to restore pride and respect. And it doesn't matter where you are on the pyramid, whether you're socially marginalized or you're right at the apex of the pyramid, everyone looks for RESPECT. And we want to restore that respect and pride of creating these wonderful masterpieces that our weavers have been doing. And by providing the workplace, which they take so much pride in coming to every day. And I think what we are trying to achieve is the self-respect that was missing in the weavers' communities. We are trying to restore that. And there was I'd just like to just share that, one of the inaugurations of the Vivashalas, the weavers were asked to invite their families to the Vivashala inauguration, and the families came to the workplace, and their eyes just lit up. And there was so much emotion that I really cannot describe right now. And they were so proud of seeing where the weaver, they work, the workplace. So there's a lot of sensitivity and respect, and we are very, very, we just want to be sure that the weavers get that respect that Sumita was talking about. At the same time, what we are trying to do is improve their design capability. I think that's very important for them to be in tune with the times, for them to be able to produce art forms which are very contemporary and which is what our customers really like. I think it's also an area that we are working on, is to improve their overall technical and design capabilities.
So I think from our perspective, I think what really worked for us was the excitement that weavers would get when they saw that we are actually creating identity and awareness of them, right? I mean, we are actually creating them, bringing them online. So whether it's Kalu Ramji of Bikaner, or I think Sumita ji also knows Kalu Ramji. So very young entrepreneurs when they started off, and we started creating identity for them. So again, somebody was saying that the marketing is not so much about Go Co-op, right? I mean, the marketing is more about the artisan that we are representing or the entrepreneur that we are representing. Very interesting stories. Multiple of our entrepreneurs have won the national award. One of the famous one is Vanjire Ramesh from Karnataka. So when you're creating identity for an artisan or an enterprise, so like for example, Koyalgudam Cooperative Society, I don't think anybody knows about this even now. I mean, back in the day, even in Hyderabad, this is like 70 kilometers from Hyderabad. Nobody knew about this cooperative society. When we started talking about this cooperative society, started sharing pictures of the society, it's been there since independence. It's a good 75-year-old organization, Pochampalli Cooperative Society and Koyalgudam Cooperative Society. So they got so much recognition, and that started making them believe that, these guys are not just looking at themselves, right? It's actually, they're making us, a lot more visible, right, in what we are doing in marketing. So it's not just sales which happens in e-commerce, like the question that we were answering earlier. It's a lot of this identity and awareness for the artisan, and also the craft that we are promoting is what also gives a long-term benefit for some of these producers and artisans.
Supal, should we take the question now? Or I just wanted to stretch this point just for last one. So I think we all agree, and I think we are talking to people who are in the sensitive business, but I just wanted to bring out this because it troubles me every day, because today the market is such that it's absolutely dynamic, it's very diverse. We have the weavers reaching directly to the audience. We have more platforms where weavers can come and showcase directly. We have brands which are working with them. And what therefore in this process happens is that sometimes unfortunately, we can sometimes make the weaver look less innovative or the weaver look less with the times. And of course, the brand gains from taking whatever. And worse still, sometimes what happens is the brand sometimes distorts the craft. And when you actually see it with the weaver, you wonder that if it's actually the true form or not. And there are all kinds of players here. So this is something which I think we are going through that phase where craft is literally coming out of our ears, but it's also coming out of our ears in very many ways. So we have all sort of platforms coming up. So any thoughts and any sort of last comments that any of you want to say about how can one be more sort of protective about it as well? Because obviously we are dealing with something which cannot be played with, and therefore what do we do, if at all anything? Because everybody uses words like sustainable, organic, slow fashion, and anything. It's a blanket words, and then what you get is 20% of that and 80% of the rest. So what is anybody's thought? Any of you can say what you feel about how do we protect our weavers on this?
Okay. I'm going to go on the point that you spoke about, that craft's coming out of our years, and we are distorting craft. If
No, I just meant there are in 1,000.
yeah. So when we are working with a certain cluster and they have a certain motif or they have a certain way of working, technicalities around it, colors around it, the shapes, forms, everything around it, it is not frozen in time. It was never frozen in time. It has always evolved from generation to generation. And that evolution, if that ceases to exist, this evolution does not happen, the craft is going to die. So the only way it can progress is actually by continuous development, whether it's design development, whether it's the technicalities of it, whatever it is. So I don't necessarily agree with the distortion. I don't know in what exact way you meant distortion, but I wouldn't call that distortion. I would call it evolution. And it can go both ways, and that's natural, and you should let it happen. If it goes that way, it goes that way. So that's all I want to say on that point. As far as losing out on what we've set out to do at the start of something is what Sumita said. I think if you hold your values close to your heart and ensure that whatever you're doing, every time you're doing it, you keep holding on to those values, it will not reach a point where you don't know what you're doing and where you're going. So that's all.
Okay, I hope I can be very candid. So I think this was last Diwali. I think I was just trying to do a little bit of research by going to different brands and seeing what they're doing. And yeah, I think a lot of distortion does happen. I think it's not just in India, but it's across the globe. Big brands misrepresenting, craft. In fact, using craft forms without the permission of the indigenous community, right? I think there's a big lawsuit, I think, with one of the big brands, which went on for a long time. So I think the both sides of the story. So last year when I was just going around, I saw pretty big brands, right? I mean, some of the largest houses selling Maheshwari sari for 750 rupees and, things like that, right? A Banarasi silk sari, right, which is neither Banarasi nor silk. That's the interesting part. So, and this is very common. It's not uncommon. You go and search in any major platforms, this is what you'll find in the top 10 listings, right? So there is distortion, and we have to, maybe, in my view, we have to also acknowledge this. But the good part, what has also been happening is there has also been very good effort and representation from, brands as well, right? So I think not because Ambuja is here, but Taneira is one such brand, which has really stood for craft, right? And we worked very closely with Taneira in the first store. I think Gokop was one of the sourcing partners, but I think there's also a lot of positive representation happening, right? Where we are actually telling what is a Jamdani, what is a Banarasi, right? And I think what needs to happen more is positive representation and amplifying that more. Adhyam is also another such initiative, right? You guys have been so pure to craft. And also, I think in representing craft in a very contemporary fashion. So when we have more positive representation happening from the industry, from the ecosystem, like what we're having, the handloom colloquium, the handloom fair, right? We are trying to talk about handlooms now. So this is happening a lot more than what I've seen 5 years ago. A lot more, I think all of us would agree to that. And there's also a small role or a big role government also has to play, because this is what we have been asking, and we have been talking about Handmade in India initiative, how there can be a very prominent campaign or an initiative by Government of India which promotes craft. Like the way we have promoted Make in India initiative, we have to promote Handmade in India. So something is happening. I don't know what's happening, to be honest, but hopefully, the private sector and the government, I think can do a lot more in creating more positive enforcement.
Yeah, very good evening. I thought I'll just say out rather than waiting and mentally preparing myself. So Manish, you've been asking everyone, so my question I think goes to you. So first of all, of course, I've been a frequent visitor to your showroom at the Khan Market, and I love it. So we've been talking about the whole thing of entering the community through the weavers. The weavers is the unit here, and moving out, something like we call in theory phase in and phase out. So while we've seen that phase in is also not easy because of the whole discussion of the trust factor. Phase out, definitely it's come out, is also not easy. So while in theory we say that 5 years probably or 6 years one needs to be really moving out, so as not to make the community dependent on itself. But the discussion has taken a different paradigm, a different form. So I'd like to know from you, and maybe anybody else, the panelists, they're all humble panelists, that what do you think should be the phase out time? Because anytime you would like to move out, there would be separation pangs, there would be anxiety from the community because somewhere they've become dependent on you, right. Now they've developed a trust factor on you. So I'd just like to know about it.
So yeah,
Thank you.
I think firstly I'm very glad that you've asked me this question because this is the thing which is closest to me. So when we started going to the weavers, let's say 6 years back, and started pitching to them that as to why do we want to become partners with you, our promise was very simple, and I think I heard this somewhere else too, that 365 days of work. So we just wanted them to believe in us, that no matter what, we will be there with work with you, and you need to do what you do best, because you are an artisan, you are a creator, and therefore you should divest your energies into creating products and make more and more exquisite products. So actually that's another thing we work on. That's the second principle we work on. How do we make the products look even